Welcome back to the Overwatch World Cup 2019. Yeah, you're hearing this correctly. This is Matt Mistrex and Sideshow Gaming, uh, talking about Singapore, Finland because we can't find Bren. So for now, I will be Brennan Hook. The game is very close to going live, so I'm the only one here. So I threw a headset on. How are you doing today,
Yeah,
Josh?
I'm doing very well. We just got boomed by a fire alarm, and Bren is
Oh,
lost,
yep.
presumed dead.
Well,
he,
no.
he can't really look after himself at the best of times,
Yeah.
and these are not the best of times. So
Yeah, so the map set for this series will be Lijiang Tower, Eichenwald. We got Junkertown in here, good old Paris situation. So
oh,
we'll
look,
get that in there. That lower third. I would say I'm giving Bren some Twitter clout, but nobody follows him, right? So I mean, it doesn't really matter.
exactly. It never makes a difference.
Yeah.
I'll run you through on how the bracket's been so far, though.
Yeah.
Mr. X,
How's
'cause I
things
know-
been on your stream?
Yeah, so this is our first glimpse of Finland, but
Yes.
we saw Singapore just now absolutely brutalize South Africa. The problem is when you have games that are so one-sided like that, very difficult to be able to tell even who's winning.
Right.
But look at this. You've actually got Shaz playing the Reaper here for Team Finland. Now that is unexpected. You've got a Zupe Massa backline and Shaz and RCK on DPS.
And RCK played most of the season in the Overwatch League as a flex tank. So Shaz, as you may know, also is a flex support, but RCK going crazy on the Doomfist. Mitch just walked in. He's so confused as to what is going on right now. But Finland looks to be in control of the point first. Tell me a little bit about Singapore. You had a chance to watch Singapore earlier today.
Yeah, had a little bit of a chance. It was very difficult actually to be able to tell. They seem like they have a decent understanding of how to play a bunch of meta compositions.
Yeah.
Azalea was going for the backline a lot, and Bubble Kitty, they tended to try and push their DPS into positions to succeed. And at the moment, they're just overwhelming the tank line of Finland. RCK didn't get an opportunity to fight there.
No, it'll be a coalescence from both sides, but it's Singapore that comes out on top as it looks like the remaining members of Finland just getting cleaned up here. Looks like Finland, though, at least for the time being, though, Josh, they're doing a good job stalling this out. That'll be Zappis who's going to invest his Gravitic Flux into this.
He
And there's nobody alive.
He goes forward with the flux, and there's absolutely nobody there.
Yeah.
Singapore have just stayed in control. They haven't managed to flip the point yet, though, and RCK falls. He was about to get his Meteor Strike, tried to play a little aggressive, ends up paying for it.
But what did that Flux do? It bought them just a little bit of time there, as there was nobody close.
All right, man. That's enough out of you. That's enough out of you. I appreciate you filling in for this grand match, but it's okay, Chad. Don't worry. Papa's back. Papa Bren is here to bring you the action for Finland versus Singapore. Lord knows what that boy was saying. Matt comes on the mic to fill in for me.
Just some absolute nonsense,
The
Brent.
worst thing I have ever heard of in my life. But it looks like this game is going in the way so far. Singapore are in control of the point. Coalescence is going to be traded out by both of them. Shaz! Oh my word! 4 kills of him with a Dead Blossom. That's going to be a retake right away by Finland.
And a beautifully sick halt in the middle of that, just to secure everybody together and allow Shaz to hit a 4K Death Blossom. Really nice play. But look at that. The fact that Shaz is even playing DPS in the first place. He's a player that we've seen on the Gladiators in Season 1 of the Overwatch League actually pick up things like the Genji, weirdly, and play on certain rounds. So he has that ability to flex.
RCK going to be going with the Doomfist now. We see this fight is actually going to be going the way of Singapore. They lay down the Supercharger. It's enough of an advantage for them to just retake the point almost instantly. It's going to be 40% encountering for them. Very efficient usage of ultimate there. They ended up using 3. Finland trying to battle back. They ended up using the sound barrier. Ended up using the Supercharger of their own, actually, but to no avail.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Finland decides to do here on this next attack. As looks like they're going to go with the Coalescence.
For God's sake, Matthew.
Matt, leave the room right now as we see the coalescences being traded by these teams. Singapore trying their darndest to hold on to the point, and there we have it. Zap is going down. It's going to be the entry they really needed. RCK tries to even it up with a kill of his own. A Meteor Strike going to be used defensively by Azalea. Well, there we have it. Another 1 point here for Singapore holding on. Now this is going the way of Singapore when we were thinking it was going to be quite overwhelmingly one-sided to the way of Finland.
Hey, we've got a game on our hands. This is a surprise, but a welcome one, to say the least. I think, honestly, Finland's roster is a surprise to me. I thought they would be running Ricky, the Mei specialist, on Mei, and trying to craft their compositions around Reaper Mei. And instead, they've got Shaz in there, and they look like they're actually struggling to get value in a couple of these fights.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to see the Flux going to be used by Zappis, trying to intro this. Sapphire used by Singapore as well, just to hold on to the point. They have the HP advantage now. Uppercut by RCK, he's going to get sent flying as well. Now we see the Coalescences and the Soundbire by Finland. Both support ults really trying to win this one out through sheer attrition. They are going to do just that as they recap the point. Singapore recognize that. They know that they've used a lot of ultimates. They're going to back off, let them gain the point. And now Singapore have an advantage when it comes to a lot of these ultimates and what to work with.
Yeah, slightly concerning though that Singapore don't have either of their support ultimates to be able to get in through this choke point. They're gonna try and fight around the Death Blossom and see if they can generate the supercharger, but Finland in the neutral fight should be able to give them a bit of a rougher.
Absolutely.
Why have they got a Moira in the backline?
The ultimates are coming in, Josh. I don't know why they got a Moira in the backline. I can't explain it to you. But what I can explain is that Finland have just used all their ultimates and they've won the round. So that's going to be actually an incredibly close game so far.
Just chaos. Just absolute chaos to begin
pandemonium.
with. I started casting with Matt, Mr. X Morello. Shaz is playing DPS. We've just been kicked out of the building because of a fire alarm. I come back. Singapore nearly wins the first round. What universe am I living in?
I am lost. Lost in the sauce. Lost in the sauce. I come running back. Matt's in my seat. Like, oh my word. I mean, I appreciate you filling in.
But let's take stock of the situation here. I really thought that Finland would just blast through this. And yes, they're up 1-0 so far on the first map, Lijiang.
Okay.
But Singapore had many opportunities to be able to win that round. I think this is going to be a game.
Yep, I think this is definitely going to be a match, Josh. I mean, there's not many other things it could be, I'll be real with you, but Singapore utilizing the Symmetra to try and get an early advantage when it comes to positioning. Now, Finland going to be inting in, as you can see. Azalea runs himself in with the rocket punch, gets knocked up into the air, falling very, very low. Now, Bubble Kitty running in with the shotgun, seeing what he can get done here. Spray down to the ground just for the BM value. A little bit of added spice there, and another punch onto RCK. He goes down. Seismic slam back. It's going to be a bit of shield. The punch as well. Slammed into the fortified target means not going to be getting too much value out of it. But it looks like this battle of attrition is once again being won by Singapore.
RCK seems like he's going for big value plays. He's going for picks very often. Azalea's looking to counter him and then occasionally put pressure on the tank line. And the amount of times that LH Cloudy has died early on in these fights is starting to creep up. It's becoming noticeable. So I'm keeping my eyes now on Cloudy and Zappis to see if they can hold strong and try and get back in this game.
Well, now you see the Coalescence being used by both the teams, trying to sustain through these fights. Bubble Kitty punched against the wall, has to back off, use the Ray form. Defensively, Shaz creates an opening for them. Zupe follows it up as well. This is what Finland need to get back into this match. A couple of ults almost coming online for them as well, but a two-man advantage should be more than enough. The meter strike has to be used defensively for RCK to try and survive in this fight. And that'll be enough for them to retake this point in the end.
A lot of picks there for Finland, and they're going to finally secure the capture point on Lijiang Tower. But 40% for Singapore very early on, and they're managing to drag out these fights so that they last a long time. They didn't invest any ultimates over the course of this. I mean, obviously ults have been used, but they're starting to generate them back, and the next fight is going to have a lot available for Singapore. Over on Finland as well, it might be a little crazy when you're trying to look over at this right-hand side of your monitor, because Zope's in a tank position, even though he's playing Moira. But Finland have got their own kind of stuff available as well. And these flank timings from Shaz have been wonderful.
Yeah, here we have it, Shaz. Going to be looking to see if he can get any value out of the Death Blossom. Now moving forwards, look at this. He's pressuring him with the shields. But
so
look
aggressive!
At the ultimate! So much aggression by Singapore. The superchargers committed absolutely bloody everything on the board right now. Finland wiped out. And this point is going to be Singapore's for the taking.
Singapore backed up there and tried to kite Shaz for a second. And as soon as their player came back, as soon as Azalea was available in the fight again, 4 of them all just hit their Q buttons immediately, and they speed boosted and ran forwards. And it caught Finland utterly unawares. When a team moves that quickly, it is so hard to react. Your calls have to be perfect. And Team Finland, they've had a couple of players drop out of this World Cup. This isn't the roster they were expecting to use.
That's the one they were given, Josh. They got to put up with it right now, and they've got to try and make it work against Singapore, because Singapore leading the counterpunch, waiting by Azalea. The soundbire is going to be used. Uppercut, trying to intercept them. Now the soundbire by Finland, trying to trade it out. Again, battling it out. They have the HP advantage. Azalea using that Meteor Strike. It's not going to get value, but lays down enough damage so that Akame can come in with the Coalescence and start to clean up. 82%. Singapore still in control at this point. Finland, I don't even know if they'll have an opportunity to contest this. RCK, maybe if he goes off onto the right-hand side flank, goes for a long jump, requires a bit of techers to do onto Doomfist, but...
Well, they're actually chasing him around the right-hand side at the moment, but I believe that's Massa that's got him behind, and they lost track of RCK, and he just gets a Meteor Strike kill for free.
All right, okay, why not? Somebody contesting the point. The overtime is ticking down. Somebody trying their best. Now we see the Coalescence by Zupe, mowing them all down. Going to be running them very, very low here. LH Cloudy finds the pick. Finland should be able to recontest this, especially with the power driver. LH Cloudy coming into the backline, and they flipped the point in the end, but this has been very, very, very close between these two teams, and Singapore are not going to be letting up. In fact, they have a huge advantage coming into this.
A massive advantage, especially when you consider that Cloudy is still on the Wrecking Ball. Does he choose to go back and switch over to the Orisa? It doesn't seem like it, at least for the moment. So they're going to be fighting with a main tank on Wrecking Ball for this beginning. That means they have to play very aggressive, utilize his slams, and try and get big value out of their Reaper.
Here we have it. Power driver is going to get reasonable value. The Sigma Shield was there to block off a lot of the damage from the enemy team.
You see him flank with Shaz.
Being moved around, the Flux as well being used. By the side of Singapore,
Oh,
Death Blossom into the
Death
back
Blossoms!
line. 2 kills for Bubbly Killy. And oh my word, this might actually be winnable right now for Singapore. Taking a round against Finland. The LH Cloudy comes in with a mine. Absolute pandemonium on our screens. Coalescence used to try and close this one out. Cloudy clutching on the Wrecking Ball. Hammond character just steamrolling his way through the opposition here. Finland in control of the point. This has been some of the scrappiest Overwatch I've ever seen.
Yeah, just holding on by tenterhooks here. But Singapore, if they're able to get somebody to touch the point, they have a Death Blossom, sorry, not a Death Blossom, a Supercharger and a Sound Barrier. They just need to get onto the point and get in position.
Meteor Strike end up being used. A lot of damage into Zappis and he falls. Supercharger coming out now for Singapore. This looks like it's their fight to win. In a very overwhelming fashion, RCK tries to turn it with the Meteor Strike, but doesn't get that much value. In fact, the stuns are going to be traded now, as both the Doomfists hit the deck. But it matters not. As Singapore, they have the player advantage. Azalea finds the final kill. The overtime burns down, and that's going to be a round for Singapore. It's 1-1 in the first map between Singapore and Finland. Words I didn't think I'd be saying.
No, absolutely not. Great showing so far from Singapore. Finland had a bye in the first round of this bracket, so we haven't had an opportunity to see them so far. They've got by on most people's predictions based on their previous success and the fact that this backline is certainly top owl level. Zupe and Massa, that's strong. Normally you would have Shaz in that position, or maybe somebody like Ripa, but Zupe has come in and filled in the role while Shaz moves over to DPS. Davin had to drop out of the World Cup kind of late on in the running for personal reasons, but Finland making the best of what they can. And Shaz has not been playing badly. Shaz's flank timings have been very good, but Finland's tank line is getting run over in some of these circumstances.
We'll see what they're capable of doing now as we move into the final round of the initial control map. You can see the punches are being traded there. Sashok have to back off for a little bit. The shields come back out now to counter punch as well from RCK. He's trying to work his magic into it, but a seismic slam just to escape around the side now. Pumping in a lot of damage into Singapore. So far, no casualties being found. Shaz just trying to play a bit more defensively, but there's the punch. The initial workaround. Shaz falling is absolutely massive.
Such an early coalescence as well from Akame is going to be able to turn it. Yes, Singapore took all the damage, but Akame did all the healing. And with that one pick from Azalea, and then Akame's insanely quick. All right, well, that wasn't exactly what we wanted from Azalea.
I mean,
nice boot by Massa.
Yeah, great boot by Massa there. I mean,
this game's been mental so far.
If this match ends up with an early lead to Singapore, and they end up taking this first map, I mean, this is
anything can already
shaping up to be one of the most ridiculous games we've had in the World Cup thus far. Now, it's Finland's time to answer back. The Coalescence is going to come out here. They're going to use the extra healing, the extra damage to try and lead their way in, and they do just that. 2 quick and easy kills means at this point, it's most likely going to be going their way with almost no casualties. I say that, and yet the sound barrier is committed here by Singapore.
I don't really understand that. I don't understand it at all. Singapore's positioning was very passive. weirdly so, especially when all Finland had to engage there was the Coalescence, but they chose not to fight in the choke, and instead Bubble Kitty just got randomly caught out, and then rather than accept your losses and regroup, they invest the sound barrier. Now, Massa has used his sound barrier in the previous fight as well, and now you've got a situation where both Sigmas are about to get their Gravitic Flux without any answer on the other team. This almost always favors the defenders.
Finland setting up the defensive position. They're in control of the point, but the question is for how much longer now, as the Coalescence is going to be spraying down the opposition. We see these superchargers being exchanged by both these teams. Death Blossom gets cancelled here. Right now it's any team's game, but looks like Finland are getting the early edge as the supercharger has managed to stay up during this fight. Seismic Slam does way too much damage. Azalea taken out of the fight, sent back to the respawn queue. And Finland are still in control of the point. This is good news if you're a fan of Finland.
A huge amount of ultimates were utilized there. And Zappis's Gravitic Flux, because Singapore have to push it through a choke point, got a lot of value. Yes, he died just as he used it, but it was able to hold everybody in position, and they were fearful for coming through the choke point, and Finland ended up getting the kills.
Now it's Finland's time to strike back with the defense. Taking the initiative a little bit using this Coalescence early on. So much damage that Sashok just ends up falling. Now we see the damage orb as well. It's going to be dealing a lot of that little ticking damage, which is enough for the rest of the team to just kind of follow up on, as you see Supe Zappis finding the picks where necessary here. 70%
crew.
Yeah, the Zed's crew. I'm surprised I actually managed to say their names without fumbling a little bit there. But Singapore, whilst they were off to a very good start, it looks like Finland are increasingly more and more able to find their footing. Now the question is, are they be able to hold off an attack now from Singapore when Singapore have such an overwhelming ult advantage?
I think Finland want to push aggressive with this sound barrier. Massa's going to flank, and he's switching around a little bit. Yeah. Oh, they go forward. Azalea with the initial pick. Both Sigmas traded, but Finland do decide to utilize this sound barrier.
Still winnable for Finland. They've got so many picks now. In fact, the tank line being absolutely slaughtered. Doesn't matter how many shields Azalea has, because it is going to be all blue in the kill feed. Finland are going to secure quite a scrappy map, but a map nonetheless, as they are going to be taking it against Singapore. I'm not going to lie, Josh, I just felt like I was in a fever dream. Because I just come running in, Singapore was winning, Matt was casting, I turn around after 5 seconds and he's casting on your position then. That was a weird turn of events.
That really was a strange turn of events, but I think we've got a game here. I think we've got a very competitive series. I expected Singapore to get blown out because it's so hard to tell how good a team like Singapore is when they stomp a team that we have never seen before at the World Cup, like South Africa. You never know whether they were just a little bit better than them and South Africa were quite a weak team, or it might be the case like Italy, who are currently doing the business to Sweden, where they destroy a team like India. You feel like, oh, they're probably not that good, and they actually end up being very competitive.
Yeah.
It looks like we've got a similar situation here, where Singapore are able to be very competitive with one of the titanic Nordic teams of Finland.
Interesting to see how much further it can really be taken here between these two teams. Now, the next map, I believe we are in the second round, so it's going to be Eichenwald. And we'll see what these teams are really made of. In the meantime, we're going to run to a short break. And when we come back, we will be ready and waiting with Eichenwald, the next match in this series between Singapore and Finland. It's shaping up to be a very, very good one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Overwatch World Cup 2019. Almost forgot what year it was then. We got Singapore versus Finland. It is map number 2. Finland currently one map up, but it was a very, very close series in that first map. And I gotta say, surprisingly so, I came in running, rushing, to find that I was almost replaced by Matt Morello. I mean, I have nightmares about it on a regular basis.
Don't worry about it.
Sure the Overwatch League does as well. But, here we have it, Eichenwald, an interesting one in terms of compositions that get used. Finland opting for the Farah Bastion defense. I love to see this.
Nice usage. I was slightly concerned there that RCK was putting himself in a sightline so that they'd be able to get a Widowmaker pick, but it's Zappis with the Sigma barrier, allows him to get off a little bit of free spam. RCK doesn't really hit anything, but it shows that they are prepared for what's happened.
Yeah, we'll see what I can do now running this Mei composition, because they are being battered. The Mei wall has to be used offensively.
This is a great amount of ult charge for RCK here. He needs to have this barrage available for when they commit onto Shaz.
He's doing a good job of it thus far, because they can't really do too much about it. Now the Mei wall's going to be committed so that it looks like Singapore can gain a bit of an advantage inside the initial hut, making their way, the movements around. The Hulk's going to try and knock them off, but RCK with a damage boosted rocket. Sashok ends up being sent back to the respawn queue. He's going to have to reset, and that should crack this wide open now for Finland to try and take advantage of this. You can see the damage trying to be done here. Singapore just trying to build up some ultimates. They realize the fight is not won. They're going to have to reset this one.
Yeah.
But any value they can get out of the rest of that fight is good.
There's a few really key things to think about here when you've got a Mei Reaper setup going up against the Bastion. RCK needs to have his barrage available if Singapore get in a position where they commit onto the Bastion, because then you can bait your Bastion, get big barrages out, and they can't look at both directions at once. The other thing to think about is taking a look at Jervis. If he's able to boot people off the high ground, it forces Finland to reposition.
Kame falling very, very low to some rockets, has to use the fade. Half HP, has the coalescence in this next fight. But RCK has the barrage, and Josh, you were talking about that as one of the win conditions right now for Finland.
Yep.
On the defense, as soon as Singapore try and engage in any of these close corridors, you can see them coming from behind. The barrage instantly comes out. Now the kinetic grasp, not enough. The damage comes through in the end. Xenoflight ends up falling, and now Finland are in a very defensible position once again, getting these picks nice and easily. This is a very difficult defense to try and break.
It certainly is. It requires a huge amount of coordination. I'm surprised that we haven't seen it more here in the Overwatch World Cup, because as long as you have the fundamentals down on defense, it's the kind of defense that you can replicate a lot, and it's incredibly powerful here on Eichenwald. For Singapore, I would have recommended even running a Bastion, running a mirror composition almost entirely to try and break this, but instead they've opted for the Mei Reaper. And one of the best ways of breaking this is to try and halt RCK when he's playing this aggressive and see if he can get a kill. But instead, they're just shielding off his damage. They don't want to try and find the pick on the Fire or the Mercy.
I mean, RCK is very close to a barrage. In fact, he has it. These damage boosted rockets are absolutely wrecking Singapore when they're trying to go for these
rotations. You should have barrage every fight with this composition, which is insane.
A lot of value being made here. Now the wall is used a little bit prematurely here. Blitz are going to be used. The rotations by Finland as they move to the low ground. Sound barrier as well. Now the Flux. It's a whole mismatch of ultimates, but it's Finland who are coming out on top. Bubble Kitty commits fully to try and bring down a supercharger. Doesn't matter. Now a tick was gained here by Singapore, but for the amount that they committed into it, you really needed to be winning that team fight. You needed to be winning that and it's kind of delodging Finland away from this defensive position. So far, they're able to set up once again.
Absolutely. And I think you need to think about getting more value out of your Lucio. Yes, he's speeding people into position effectively. Yes, the sound barrier there was pretty good at being able to waylay a lot of damage from the Bastion and from the Farah, but he's not going for boots. People are not getting displaced from the high ground. A great Halt Rock combo there onto RCK actually, but they're not able to follow it up. But it's a nice start for Singapore. There's only 18 seconds left though.
Yep, they have to try and play this point now, at least contest it so that they end up moving to the low ground. They need to be aware of RCK in the backline though. Look at these rockets. Slowing down, Sashok falling down to half HP, has to be healed up now. Very, very, very close now to the Gravitic Flux. We'll see if they manage to get it now as Bubbly Kitty moves into the flank.
Nice
trying to
move.
put in consistent damage. Very, very good, but look at that, RCK with a barrage. Ends up getting brought down by a nice accretion. Singapore battling back with their own ultimates, and they've lost them, getting tremendous damage and value out of this fight. Singapore looks like a very winnable engagement, but Massa ends up getting resurrected, or getting the resurrect onto Shaz, and Shaz answers back immediately with a kill onto Xenofly.
The Gravitic Flux has actually been used though, and Shaz is up on the high ground, basically alone, but with an Immortality Field as his only friend. Zup is on the low ground, doing what he can, pops the Amp Matrix. I think Finland are clutching this!
Unbelievable. I don't know what I'm witnessing here, but I feel like Finland are a very, very angry bear that have just been prodded too much in that initial map. I mean, it was a brutal hold, and Singapore had ample opportunities to try and retake that just there at that tail end of that team fight. But just a few little clutch movements by Finland, and they're able to take the initial round. Now, the map isn't won. Don't know why we're looking at the rosters, but the map isn't won.
The map is not won. We just went to a technical pause, and so we've come out of it for a second. Not sure what the nature of that technical pause is. Hopefully we'll get back into the match very quickly. I think Finland have shown that they are very capable of being able to utilize these Bastion setups. Eichenwald, insanely strong for that kind of stuff. There are a bunch of other maps in the pool where you can get enormous value out of these Bastion setups. I mean, Rialto is another one on point A. Anubis point A, you can try and make use of that on the attack as well. There are a range of maps where running Bastion is just the best composition in this current meta. Junkertown as well, you could say. So, Finland, if you're going up against them, you have to be aware that they can run this, that they are good at running this, and have a strategy to be able to defeat them. Singapore were making some of the right moves, but crucially not others. Only got one boop out of Jervis in the final moments, which caused that chaotic fight at the end where he booped both of the tanks onto the low ground, and they never at any point tried to get damage onto RCK, who was in the sky as Pharah. Yeah, they did a Halt Rock combo onto him, stunned him, but didn't go for him. The Sigma shields were excellent from Zappis to be able to work with the Pharah, but there are opportunities to pick that Pharah out of the air.
They put all their eggs in the basket of the Mei, and it didn't really pay off. They definitely had some moments where they became very close to trying to dethrone Finland away from that initial defense, but a little bit futile in the end. And now there's no opportunity to draw this. Still an opportunity to win for Singapore, presuming they get off a very solid defense.
And I would say, honestly, the only opportunity here for Singapore is if they run their own Bastion. I think that you have to go for that kind of defense where you're all in on a hard point strategy. Yeah. And instead, Singapore are going to brawl for 4 minutes with their Reaper Doomfist. This Reaper Doomfist play has to be so clean to avoid giving up 84.1%.
No mistakes. I mean, taking a full hold on Eichenwald against a team with multiple Overwatch League caliber players.
Yep, that's a tough ask.
Yes, they're playing in their off roles, but that is a very tough ask. And Finland, you can see, kind of tempting, teasing, if you will, with this Pharah composition. We'll see if RCK wants to stick with it. The teleporter going off to the side. Not wasting any time. Very efficient.
They certainly could run this Pharah setup even into the Reaper Doomfist. It can get a lot of value out. And they're going to run the Pharah Bastion on offense as well. It's very effective. It's hard to break with the Reaper Doomfist.
But Singapore recognize their win condition. They have to rush them in spawn. Whilst the Pharah Mercy is too busy in the backline, they have to try and get some picks here.
Great body blocking from Cloudy, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and that is it. Singapore just absolutely secured its defense. Wonderful play by them, recognizing exactly what they needed to do here.
But they have to be able to execute that another, say, 5 times if they want to be able to full hold Finland here. And at some point, the ults are going to be available as well. Zuppe is so close to his Amp Matrix already.
The Amp Matrix is the one thing that can really just break open a lot of these defenses.
Oh, they're trying to go aggressive.
Trying to go aggressive again. Let's see if it pays off for them. Singapore opening it up, and look at this. Shaz is in the perfect position. It's 2 kills for him. RCK with a barrage in the back line. And I hate to say it, but I think the deed may be done, as Finland are just going to waltz their way onto the point now. Singapore are going to have opportunities if they switch over to stall heroes to be able to contest this. But we already have a tick for Finland. Shaz has an ultimate available to try and clean up the end of this fight. Singapore, Jervis going to try and touch the point. Not too late, but oh my word, Finland. Okay, this is what we came to expect coming into this match.
Yep.
And that was a very dominant performance coming out from them. Now, I gotta say, Singapore, I do feel like they've angered the bear with that initial map. By making it so close, by making Finland really sweat about it, they've just come out absolutely swinging, showing why they are one of the most dominant teams across all of the World Cups that we've had so far.
Yeah, Finland are a force to be reckoned with for sure. They have a lot of Overwatch League players, not necessarily all playing the roles that you would want them to play. It's not a super well-functioning team. You don't think of it as a powerhouse like your USAs, your South Koreas, your Chinas, these kind of teams. But Finland are always consistently great. And Singapore, I think you're right. I think in that first map, they were underestimating Singapore, and now they have come out to play.
And I like to see this, honestly. It's reminiscent of the San Francisco Shock, for example, when they're playing
Sure.
against some weaker opponents. You know, crushing the enemy under your boot, under your heel. Is there a greater pleasure in life? I think that was a Sun Tzu quote.
Was
I'm,
it?
I'm not
Right,
just
right.
a maniac.
I think that was a super quote.
probably a super quote as well. There's a lot of parallels between Super as a player and Sun Tzu.
Yeah, I have heard that said.
You know,
I have certainly heard that said.
But Singapore have come out and unfortunately are now 2 maps behind when it comes to Finland. They have an opportunity to try and bring this back, but it's going to take a lot. They'll need to reverse sweep Finland to try and progress in the preliminary rounds of the Overwatch World Cup. Finland are looking a little bit more concrete after a shaky start. And I'll be honest with you, I still feels like I've woken up from a dream jumping straight into that game. It's very disorientating, just trying to get to grips of what was occurring on my screen.
Yeah.
But
A strong performance coming out from
Yeah.
Finland. And, you know, if you didn't catch it, happening over on one of our partner channels, their Nordic brethren, Sweden, have just managed to overcome Italy in what was actually an incredibly close game, showing that the teams that have buys, your people like your Japan, your Sweden, your Finland, they have to be worried about certain teams being able to upset them. And this series is no different. I think
Yeah.
Finland are in a position here, if they take their foot off the gas pedal at all, Singapore are the kind of caliber of team where they can punish, on certain maps at least, and within certain compositions, they have the skill to be able to punish.
it's a bit of a brutal system, actually, and kind of format that we're running here when it comes to the single limb. Because, I mean, these guys, these teams, they pay a lot of money, crowdfunded up from the community, to end up coming out here. And Singapore, no exception. I mean, it's an opportunity to really showcase what you've got. And they've traveled 8,784 miles to even get here.
Where'd you pull that from?
The memory banks, again.
Do you just know the distance between LA and every point on Earth?
Yes, yeah, I keep an encyclopedic knowledge of every point
You have
away
such an
from LA.
encyclopedic knowledge that you could almost not pronounce encyclopedic.
I told you, Josh. I mean, I'm more of a numbers man. You see, I deal in numbers, not really words. Now, you might be wondering, why am I commentating at the Overwatch World Cup? Well, to that I say, we're moving on. Finland getting close to into the third map, hopefully setting up pretty soon.
Yeah, and our third map, as always in these kind of matches, we're going to be moving on to Paris, I believe, right? Gay Paris?
No.
No, is it not? Am I
not.
wrong? What is it,
It's
Brennan?
an escort map
Oh, it's an ESCO map. It's Junkertown up
of
next.
unknown proportions.
It is. You are
Junkertown.
totally correct. It's Junkertown and then Paris.
Yep.
My apologies.
That's okay.
And these matches, as with all of the matches in bracket play here at the Overwatch World Cup, are first to 3. And that means if there's draws like there was in the Italy-Japan game, like there was in the Italy-Sweden game, that we keep going until a team has 3 wins.
Now, I once went to Singapore
Did you?
as a young, impressionable youth.
How old were you?
13 at the time.
Okay.
And it was one of the best countries I've ever visited.
Yeah.
In
I
terms
actually
of-
consistently hear incredible things about Singapore, both
Yeah.
from people who visit and from people who live there.
In terms of cleanliness, in terms of the friendliness of the people, the food,
Yeah.
the culture that sort of permeates around it. It's a
The
real
education system
big
as well.
education system. It's a melting pot, though, of different cultures that all come together. A fantastic city to visit if you ever got the opportunity to. Lovely place, lovely people. I have a great story of when I was traveling with my grandmother
Okay.
to Singapore. Decided to stop off at a restaurant near the hotel
In Singapore.
in Singapore, and
Right.
they only had a table big enough for 10. But they sat us
Well, how
down there.
many people
It was just
were
me,
you with?
me and my grandmother. It's 2 of us at a table of 10. Now, we ended up sharing the table with a business group. Just a business meeting. They were going out
Right.
for a corporate meeting, like a
Okay.
meal. And they treated us to all sorts of delicacies that come straight from Singapore.
Oh.
You know, crab, all sorts. And I have a very fond memory of the waitress trying to serve me an alcoholic beverage at the time, of which I got very nervous as a 13-year-old and started to panic. So yeah.
Stick to the lemonades, kids. Stick to the lemonades.
Yeah, started to panic. But I imagine we will be jumping into this match shortly.
Yeah.
No fire alarms this time to stop us.
That's absolutely true. Azalea doing very well so far, I would say.
Yes,
In
one
terms
of
of
the
the players
players.
to look at for Singapore, Azalea's been very good. He's had an intelligent play in how he's worked around the Doomfist fights in particular when it came to Li Zhang. I think he got the better end of RCK in a number of situations. And Bubble Kitty has also been having some great timings on both his flanks and his Death Blossoms in the match that we casted previously when they played against South Africa, and also in the beginnings of this match when they played against Finland.
Yes, well, a little fun fact for you about Singapore. Initially, Akame was supposed to be playing damage dealer for Singapore.
Akame, their flex support.
Their support player, and he was replaced by Azalea due to getting deferment from military service.
Right.
But a support player that they were supposed to get, Xeon Flux, ended up stepping down from the team and was actually replaced again by Akame. So Akame's playing in a bit of an off role here. He's not normally a support player, as far as I'm aware.
And another quick fact as well about Team Singapore is that perhaps we should have anticipated that this team would look fairly decent on a bunch of different meta compositions, because their coach is none other than John Galt, who is the recent head coach for the Washington Justice and former assistant coach from the Los Angeles Gladiators.
Yes,
and I actually have a lot of respect for that guy. I think he's a very intelligent analyst and coach from the bits and pieces that I've seen, and from what I've heard of the Los Angeles Gladiators and the way that they were putting strategies together this season. I think that John Galt's got a good future on the Washington Justice, and I think he's probably done a lot of work with these guys from Singapore. And I know that he's a very proud Singaporean. Is Singaporean the right word?
I would assume so, but I don't
Probably.
know for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not
I think that he's quite proud of his roots in Singapore as well. Talks about it a little, fairly often actually on Twitter. And I wish him all the success with this team, because although they're not 2 down, that first map showed glimpses of a team that could play up to the level of Finland.
Yes, incredibly close first series, or first map, I should say. Just want to point out as well that Jake just walked past me, made the peace sign, and stuck his tongue out at me.
Okay, so that's very woo of him.
They just got done with their last cast of the day.
Both Ricky and RCK coming in on DPS. I mean, RCK was already in, but you got the Ricky and the Rook.
Here we go. Okay, that's why it took a little bit longer than normal. Finland getting a couple of subs in. Opting for almost a classic pirate ship-esque composition, I suppose it would be, but the Bastion just needs to get set up. For now, it's holding onto the high ground. Azalea over onto the Sombra, falling very low, chunk down, has to translocate back. Find some healing from elsewhere.
And the problem with this Sombra pick is that they really can't fight the Bastion Farah until they have EMP.
Oh wow!
And Azalea's taking forever to build EMP because of the double shield.
Yes, it's a problematic scenario. And I mean, Ricky was just playing on the high ground, quite far back. Look at him; he doesn't want to try and play up close onto the point. They're going to win this first team fight. Kinetic grasp by Singapore is going to be used to the. They're going to gain a bit of ground here, as you can see. The fire though from RCK is getting a lot of value. He's already built up the barrage. Now let's see the Ops to use it, coming very, very, very close between them. The Rockets laying them in. Already picks up 1 kill, making 2. The damage boost is there. Now the Moira will fall. There you have it. RCK with the 3K opens it up now for Finland to try and push this even further.
And it's been 1 minute and 15 seconds, and Azalea has built only 50% of his ultimate. The EMP is still a long way from being charged. It's very hard. Who do you even shoot? You're trying to get into the back lines, but you're getting peppered by the Bastion, peppered by the Batiste. It's hard to build the EMP, and they can only fight when they have it or if they get a huge hack.
There we have it. RCK's waiting for the opportunity to use this barrage. Just hovering over them. The Rockets being rained down.
How did they kill Ricky there? But RCK manages to clutch anyway, and the res comes
regardless.
Through. But I mean, that's so strange. The immortality field should have been there. Finland, a little bit of a mistake, but it's very easily rectified by RCK and Massa.
Not all bad. They're still going to get this first checkpoint. We're going to see RCK swapping over to the Doomfist now. Now, Singapore have ults to work with, but they spent so long building up this EMP. They've only just got it, and look at this rapid time that Finland have in their bank.
The other thing about Singapore here is that if they take a very early fight with the EMP, it will be easier for a Bastion to get back on the payload if Finland wanted to run it. So they're incentivized to take a slightly later fight with the EMP, and instead going straight into the
Here
choke.
we have it, the EMP comes out, only going to be connecting onto 3 targets, but it's enough for them to bring down Ricky in the end. RCK follows suit as well. Quick little beat down by Jervis. And we have the Death Blossom available if Bubble Kitty wants to use it, but it seems the primary fire is just as sufficient to bringing down a lot of these players. Singapore, with a good defense, actually very efficient as well in terms of the ult usage.
Yes, absolutely. They managed to get that, and also because the fight devolved into chaos, Azalea managed to get another 40% of his ultimate charge. So that EMP building way more quickly after another EMP than when you were just trying to take the fight in the neutral game to begin with.
Curious now, Zappis. He has the Flux available to him, the Kinetic. Grasp going to be sucking up a lot of the damage. Supercharger with the Coalescence, a classic combo. Is not capable of getting any kills. Now the Soundbarrier is going to be committed by Singapore! And the backline, Bubble Kitty lays it into them with the Death Blossom. That's going to be 3 picks. Exactly what Singapore needed.
Yes, absolutely perfect timing. Picks up 5 in the fight overall. The sound barrier was used early from Jervis. I was wondering why, because Zappis hadn't committed his Flux. It was because he wanted it to hit Bubble Kitty as well, so that he could absolutely ensure that the picks went through.
Now we see Finland trying to reset this fight a little bit. Working their way around onto the low ground.
Very,
setting up for the time being.
Very
Axe
interesting
comes out.
desktop
EMP,
background.
don't comment on it, Josh, don't comment on it, because we see Singapore definitely doing business, definitely doing work. Now to Blizzard being committed here by Finland, but to no avail. End up losing a lot of their players, and Singapore still winning out this fight.
Let me get my telescope out. I'll try and figure out what's going on. Massa with his ultimate still available. They've got 2.5 minutes, but this is...
What is this, a stream for ants? You gotta have fun with it, ladies and gentlemen. You gotta have fun with it.
You gotta embrace it, my man.
You can't mold. You just gotta roll with the punches. You know what I mean?
You can't mold. You just gotta roll. That nearly rhymes. You know, you said you weren't a master of rhyme earlier on, but I think you got a career as an aspiring rapper.
Sound barrier by Finland, committed very early, seeing if they can get some early pick off. Xenofly does go down, Supercharger almost cancelled out there, but Singapore do manage to get it off, but it's almost instantly deleted. Zappis demolishing on the Sigma. Accretion comes out. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you. Woo. Thank you.
Any comment on the way that team fight went?
No. Honestly, no.
Okay, sure.
EMP about to come back up here, though. So if Singapore actually try and recontest, which they are, immediately halted out behind the Orisa shield, they're going to die before Azalea even gets to CMP. Nice aggression from Finland. Good use of a Coalescence. Tempo working in their favor. And I got to admit, not a fan of this Sombra, but so far it's slowed down Finland at least a little bit. They're taking the fights, they're playing aggressive, trying to charge up EMP, and then they're guaranteed to win the fights whenever EMP is around. So they're finding some value out of it. I don't think it's the best comp by any stretch of the imagination, but they're doing all right.
Well, we'll see what more they can do. RCK's on the high ground. There's a Death Blossom available to him, and they also have a Gravitic Flux to work with. However, Singapore have the answers for it. The EMP is committed very early. Zappis uses the Flux. RCK trying to contest them. It's a bit of Beyblade action. Let it rip, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, RCK absolutely demolishing. Gets brought down. It's even trades across the board thus far. But it looks like Finland have the advantage. Bubble Kitty caught out of position with the wall. The halt grass coming out from LH Cloudy is enough to pull back Singapore and pull them into the midst of Finland for them to tear up.
Ricky, the May 1 trick of Clockwork Vendetta fame, is showing us a bit of his prowess here as well. Playing these off angles, playing aggressive with the hero, trying to maximize the value out of it. Playing on the cart when he needs to in order to contest the objective. Showing a masterclass. His aim is actually really good as well.
This early Supercharger is working in dividends. Look at them absolutely blasting their way through the point. It's the extra damage that you really need to be careful of. Supercharger is such an effective ultimate. The Coalescence by Singapore. They need to contest, but they have one of their own. Zupe unleashes it onto the enemy team here, trying to keep themselves in the fight. Nobody's really focusing Xenof Life, and finally he will go down. RCK once again spin to win. 2 kills, make it 3, and that will mean Finland finishing with a minute exactly on the clock.
And it turns out that the Sombra was not particularly effective on point C. The EMP didn't find too much. They weren't able to convert the fights when the EMP wasn't live. The hacks didn't find much value. It's a very hard hero to play if it's not synced up with the Doomfist. You need the threat of the Doomfist to turn eyes and draw attention. The Reaper just doesn't do that. It doesn't threaten the opponents in the same way, where they're forced to focus all of their attention on mitigating, on utilizing, using their abilities like Halt, like Rock, these kind of things. So the Reaper-Sombra combination, though I suppose theoretically or hypothetically you could figure out ways of making it work, isn't that effective in practice. Finland have generally found that if you just run forwards and steamroll over them, the Sombra just does not get enough value.
On the other side now, it's Singapore's time to strike back.
Now I do think this is interesting. If Ricky is gonna select the Sombra here and play Sombra Bastion, firstly it's interesting because Mei Bastion is so unbelievably powerful here that, and Ricky is such a good Mei, that I'm questioning why he would not just play the Mei in the first place. But I could see value being gained here by the Sombra because you have that incredible threat DPS alongside you. It's not the Doomfist, but it is the Bastion. And the Bastion requires so many resources to get rid of. Ricky's going to have basically free reign across the entire field.
A lot of damage being pumped in. Finland with a high ground defense. Classic display right here. You see it quite often on Junkertown. And Singapore are going to be slowly rolling the card in. A lot of space being given to them. A lot of respect, if you will. Yana on the defense, just trying to heal them up. And look at Azalea. He's trying to work his way around. And the goal is going to be to try and get a... Oh my word, that's not the position you want to be in, Azalea.
See you later.
Just trying to try and...
Yeah, wanted to try and charge up the EMP.
Yeah, just a little bit of EMP, maybe try and get into a position behind them. I'm not sure he really knew what his plan was there. He was just kind of scouting for the rest of his team as well. Finland are making quick adaptations around the point, but they're giving up a lot of space for it.
And the peel is incredible from Finland, actually. They're not letting Azalea get what he wants by farming up the EMP. Now we start to see Bubble Kitty just slamming into these shields, nailing them down. Ricky gets pulled forwards, the hack onto the Orisa, and a huge anti-nade as well from Akame. Ellie Cloudy and Ricky almost being brought down. I should say Ricky, he'll back up. They've lost their main tank though. The Orisa down means no more shields. Zap is the only tank available to them. Now we see the ambitions being used, just trying to push them off. The line of sight is not ideal, however, it matters not when the enemy will just walk straight towards you.
Akame's been hitting some nice biotic nades, but they just can't follow up on them. It's so difficult to close ground.
Wow,
but Cloudy's come back on the Rhine. He thought the fight might have gone Singapore's way if he didn't roll out quickly.
Okay.
And he's got Reinhardt here. That is a potential big issue. Azalea, so weak, has that EMP, relocates out, is able to get healed back up. EMP is everything here. Massa needs to throw down his immortality field. They need Cloudy and Ricky to play off angles.
Okay.
Make sure people aren't all caught in it.
Ricky managed to catch Azalea out, and look at this pre-fire. I mean,
So good.
This is fantastic by Finland. They're pre-firing every angle that Azalea might come from. They know that the EMP is now the win condition for Singapore. And
He's
look at
past the
this.
sight line. They don't know where he is right now.
EMP comes out, it's going to be connecting. They want
Only
to try and
caught
bring
two.
down Cloudy. Only connects 2, but that might be all they need. However, RCK is going to get a nano boost up and the ultimate tank form. It's a 3K for him. Slept up in the end, but it doesn't matter. The damage is done. Singapore are going to have to reset this one.
Wonderful positioning and really astute awareness of where everybody was and what the win condition
good.
was.
Yeah.
Finland, RCK, spamming all of these sight lines, and when they saw them commit, they spread out across the area. Tanks really far forward, Ricky off to the side, RCK at the back. You couldn't possibly EMP them all. They went for the tanks, but only Cloudy fell.
Is the bait and switch. You see this quite often actually from a lot of teams. They're capable of doing it. A lot of damage being put down into Sashrock. He's got the supercharger ready and waiting. Now Bubble Kitty. They have to use the Ray form defensively. Just
Blizzard
to back
down on the
off
point.
out of here. Blizzard down. It's connected onto so many. Finland, one ultimate is all they need to win out this fight.
And that means they have so many more for this final decisive team fight. They have the Supercharger, they have the Flux. They can essentially give their Bastion a Nano Boost, an Amp Matrix, and a Supercharger, and just watch him melt everybody on Singapore. They're going for a poke comp just to try and do something, just to try and apply some pressure to RCK and make Cloudy play alongside him.
34 seconds remaining before Singapore. Here it is. Almost life and death for them right now, but look at the Amp Matrix, it's wrecking them, tearing through the opposition. Singapore, this was their play. They're trying to make it happen. The Nano Boost committed at the tail end of this. I don't know if this was a BM Nano Boost or what, a bit of a fat finger, who knows? Resurrect though from Singapore, this is it now.
The Bongo, they have given him Amp Matrix, and then waited and gave him the Supercharger.
This is it though, and Finland are doing it. Singapore have a second remaining. They've got to try and make something work. There's a buzzing of bees all around. As it looks like Finland are going to be rolling this one all the way in. Stopping the cart in the tracks. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. This will be Finland winning 3-0. Just in the nick of time as we can evacuate the bees.
Finland with the 3-0. It was less close than we were promised by that first map of Lijiang, but Singapore did well to give Finland a competitive run there overall. I think Finland, though, proved that they have a wealth of strategies that they can rely on. They are still a very competent, stacked roster with, 5 OWL players on there? Maybe 4.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous to go up against. The question marks were always their DPS, but I think RCK alongside Shaz weirdly, and then Ricky proved that they can play compositions and tend towards the Bastion and rotate those abilities and ultimates very well.
Yeah, a good showing despite the losses, despite the hardships that they've been facing. But that is going to conclude the Finland-Singapore game. A little bit later we will be basically following up on seeing who's going to be coming out on top of the Group E bracket. Finland move on to the finals of that Group E bracket. They're going to be playing against, I believe it's a mixture of teams that could be possible. Either the Netherlands or Saudi Arabia, who's going to be coming out on top of that match. An interesting one. We'll see how it all pans out, but for now, we're going to go into a break. Now, I'm not going to promise you, chat, that there's going to be a short break, because we don't know how long the other match is going to be. I think it's still occurring on one of the many streams, or it's about to occur. We have to wait for that one first to see who Finland are going to be going up against, but we do hope that you will join us a little bit later on for even more Overwatch, just a few short minutes. I lied, I said short minutes. My apologies, but regardless of that, we'll see you on the other side.
The 2019 Overwatch World Cup is brought to you by T-Mobile. Their newest signal goes farther than ever, and it's built 5G ready. Omen, the official PC and display of the Overwatch World Cup. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch World Cup.
Last 2 years, I represent France. It's a huge honor for us.
Là où personne ne nous voit.
When esport was recognized in the US or in Korea, it wasn't in France.
Unbelievable!
3 now for Sue!
It's not representing a team, it's representing a nation, and there's a ton of people watching you because they are French and they want us to win.